Fletcher's Solicitors are proud to sponsor the Mama Academy podcast series. We are one of the UK's leading birth injury specialists, trusted by families with the most complex legal cases. We champion better maternity care through every family's story. Fletcher's Solicitors, for every birth, for every baby, for every family. For more information about how we can help, visit www.fletchersolicitors.co.uk.
Hello and welcome back to the Mama Podcast. This episode continues our series exploring the people, conversations, and experiences shaping maternity and neonatal care today. Today's conversation focuses on emotional well-being and the transition into motherhood. We're joined by Georgie Woollams, founder of Mom Love, to discuss the emotional journey of becoming a mom, the importance of support and connection, and how mothers can navigate identity, pressure, and well-being during one of life's biggest transformations.
Well, welcome to this edition of the Mama Podcast. I'm Heidi Eldridge, the founder and CEO of Mama Academy and your host. And I'm sat here with Georgie. We can't wait to hear your story, Georgie, and the amazing work that you're doing. So would you like to start by introducing yourself and telling everybody who you are and what you're up to?
Yeah, so my name is Georgie Woollams and I set up a CIC, so a community interest company called Mum Love. And it is focused around educating all mums about the emotional transition you go through when you have a baby.
It sounds fantastic. So tell us more about you as a person and, how you became to start up Mum Love.
Okay, so I've been on quite a long journey. So 15 years ago, I set up a communication agency and ended up moving to the Middle East and running it over there. And then about 7 years ago, my lovely now husband turned back up into my life. And we had dated a very, very long time ago. And he came back with 2 children, which he has half the custody of. And I came back with a company in the Middle East. So we kind of compromised. and I basically moved back to the UK and I commute back and forth for work quite a lot. And I have a very, very small agency in London, which actually is predominantly working mums who are all ex-agencies and want to have a bit more of a work-life balance. I owned a communication agency. It's almost 16 years old. I actually named it after my sister, Catherine. Her nickname was Cat, and she sadly passed away of a brain tumour quite a long time ago now. And I wanted to do something in her memory. And I'm really pleased to say that it's still going and still going very, very strong. So I ended up opening a second office in the Middle East. And then my now husband came back into my life with 2 children and lives in the UK. So I transitioned from the Middle East back to the UK and now I travel. I'm always on an aeroplane, flying around the world. And in the middle of everything else that happened, we got pregnant and we had our beautiful Amelie. And I think in my head, I told myself nothing would change. I'm not going to be one of those mums, she's going to go on my back on a little backpack and I'm going to carry on. And you know what? I'm even going to take her to meetings, which I have taken her to meetings. And I had no idea how much my life was going to change. First of all, I had I would say it wasn't a traumatic birth, but it was traumatic afterwards. So I had a C-section. And during the C-section, my amniotic fluid leaked into my stomach cavity. So I had about 3.5 hours of surgery. And that resulted in me getting a paralytic ileus, which basically means your stomach doesn't move. So you can't burp, you can't do anything. I'm not going to go into what else you can't do. And no one knew. And I kept throwing up. And so I had her on the Wednesday. On the Thursday, I was quite faint. Friday, I started throwing up. Saturday, I continued to throw up. By Sunday, they put me into a CT machine and decided that I had a paralytic ileus. And then they put a tube down my throat and then they pumped my stomach. So I had for about 48 hours every 4 to 6 hours someone come in and pump my stomach. So I wasn't very strong at holding her. I hadn't signed off work because it was an emergency C-section. So I remember telling my husband, get hold of Jamie, tell her I'm not coming back to the office today. So that happened. And then I was quite weak because I hadn't eaten much, and then your stomach goes the other way. And then we went home for 2 days and I got rushed back with a hematoma. So I was in hospital all in all for about a month. And when I was at home, I lost 2 kilos, 2 years of 2 kilos, or two, whatever. I lost quite a bit of weight. I was very weak. And actually, when I did finally come home, even after the hematoma, I had to kind of learn to walk again. I wasn't very strong, really struggled to lift anything. I lost a huge amount of weight. Like if you'll see a picture of me, it's quite shocking. That was probably the first where I like to control everything and fix everything, and it was quite difficult. Um, so I came home, and because my poor husband had been in a hospital on and off the whole time, it had basically been one of those things where he had to go straight back to work. So I was left at home with the baby, very, very, very skinny and not very strong, and started to have to kind of get on with it. And that was probably the start of feeling lonely, like really, really lonely. And I remember saying to my husband, I feel lonely. And he said, well, why do you feel lonely? You've got a baby now. And thinking, oh, I don't want to moan about it. I was really, really paranoid about the healthcare worker who wouldn't sign me off for about a month because she was quite concerned about me. So I was really worried that they were all so paranoid about, postnatal depression and the stigma you have around postnatal depression. Like, I don't have postnatal depression. So I think that also was quite a big piece. And then just completely feeling like a different person. First of all, I was quite like small. I think I was the skinniest I've ever been. I know most people have a baby and are like quite concerned about what's going to happen in labor and those funny stories. And additionally to that, leaving that baby weight, I went the other way. So obviously I had to go to the loo all the time in front of my poor husband. And additionally to that, I was the skinniest thing you've ever seen. Like, I fit into dresses that I bought in the shop one day thinking that maybe I'd fit into it, but I actually was able to fit into it. It was quite bizarre. So I didn't recognize myself in that sense. And then additionally to that, I didn't know how to do the juggle. I just really, really didn't have a clue that I was going to change as George. And it took me 9 months to actually realize that I had changed. And it was reading an article about mum's identity crisis that suddenly I had like this epiphany and just felt like the bubble burst and felt normal again. And what I mean by that, normal again, is because I just kept thinking something was wrong with me, but nothing was wrong with me. Just no one ever told me that this is perfectly normal and you're going to feel different. So that kind of the really long story, but it was. And I had a conversation with, Zoe Belaski. She was saying that, um, the more you work, like the more you're really intense with your work, the bigger the fall in the mum transition that you have. And it's so true. I think I was, you could tell I go quite fast at everything I do. And I just was not expecting, I wasn't expecting to feel the way I felt. I loved my daughter so much, but it wasn't a Hollywood movie in the sense that, I was pushing this beautiful pram down the road and drinking my cappuccinos with my friends talking about life. We'd be talking about nappies and weaning and things like that. And I just felt like I didn't recognize myself or the identity that this person I was becoming. When I did realize it, which was quite amazing, was I was actually the bubble burst and actually I embraced it. And as soon as I embraced it, I started to have a totally different motherhood experience.
Wow, well, you went through a lot. I mean, that is a lot. You went through all that birth trauma. And like you say, you went through a physical change, rapid physical change. And then you've got a baby to care for by yourself when, you're feeling very weak and vulnerable. That's really, really tough. So how did you then go on to start Mum Love? And when was this? When did this happen?
So Amelie was born in 2022 in June. I set up Mum Love, thinking I would. Do you know what I wanted it to originally be? Was like a site that was really clear, because I kept going to A&E with her with a temperature because it was 39.9, and getting there, and the doctor was like, "What are you doing here?" And I just wanted someone to give me the information clearly and concisely. So that's what I thought I wanted Mum Love to be, like this kind of online magazine. And then I've just, over the years, I just spoke to so many people, and this identity piece is just so prevalent in what we all go through, and there isn't enough emotional support. That in October, that's when I was like, I know exactly what I want to do. So I created, it started as a website. So there's a website, there's resources on there. You can leave a diary account for other mums as well and tell your story. Because for me, the pivotal moment for me was reading someone's story about a mum's identity crisis, to actually have that bubble burst and enter back into the room. So that's the whole idea. And there's different stories in there, because obviously I'm a stepmom. So I even had an identity crisis becoming a stepmom, because I became a mum, and then my stepchildren reacted to that quite badly. As much as we were trying not to let anything feel like it had changed, I went to hospital for a month. They didn't see me for a month, because also we were coming out of COVID, so you still couldn't have that huge amount of visitors. And then I just didn't have the strength to be the energetic stepmom that they needed, because one, obviously lack of sleep, two, very, very sick. And so I just didn't have that emotional element, and it definitely did affect my relationship with my stepkids. So I felt like I was failing as a stepmom. I felt like I was failing as a mum. I was, how am I going to get back into work? How am I going to do these things? My relationship felt different, because my whole body had changed, and I was exhausted, and I just felt quite lost. So I didn't recognize myself, and I think that was quite a big part as well. So yeah, so the website has this element where you can leave your own letter, and you can find a letter that's relevant for you. So at the moment, we've got a lot of hits on our website, and it's actually the letter about the mum who had a lot of IVF to have her baby. We're seeing, so you can go in, you can have a look, but there's a lot of different stories. Some about mums going back to work. And the idea is you leave that letter, and you then put information at the end of the letter to say what you would pay forward to other mums. So it's like an advice piece. There's a resources section as well. So we work with pandas on this, and they've given us an emotional tracker, so you can actually track your emotions and take it to the NHS doctor if you feel like this is more than an identity transition. If you feel that this could be a postnatal or a postnatal anxiety, there's a resource to help you with that. And then there's just different exercises. So write to your pre-mum self, and recognize that you've changed as well. We have an AI resource on the site, so you can actually talk to a mum called Jane, and she's been trained by a therapist. So the pair girls have helped us train that therapist. So that was the start of it. And then I realized that actually what we need to do is advocate for change. This is not just about a website, this is about change. So I spoke to quite a few mums. I've spoken to nurses, doctors, psychologists, consultants, you name it. And I found out there really is an emotional disconnect in this whole process. So what we wanted to do is get data first. So we ran a survey with YouGov, and we found out that 1 in 7 pregnant women start a role confusion journey from that stage. And then it changes to 3 out of 4 post-pregnancy, which I think is massive. So when you go to the hospitals, and obviously what you've done, Heidi, is amazing, but when you go to the hospitals and you talk to these nurses and doctors, the only emotional support you're getting is, one, if you've had postnatal depression and you're having a second baby, they will give you that emotional support. Or if you've obviously lost a baby or having problems with your pregnancy. So there is no emotional support from day one. And it, depending on how everyone feels, if 3 in 4 are suffering from some kind of um role confusion post-pregnancy, just think what a difference we can make if we could actually let people know about this. So that was the first. And then I thought, in order to create this change, we need to do something. So we went to Downing Street, and we spoke to Downing Street. So we sat with 2 people It was around the 22nd of February. So we started in October, but by February we were at Downing Street, which still is a pinch me moment. And we sat and we had a conversation. We were like, we really need to make a change. And they were brilliant and so supportive. And they put us straight in touch with the health and social team. So we've been working with the health and social team. And our proposal is to write an emotional support pack that we can actually provide free in hospitals, as well as through hopefully things like the library, when you go for your checkup, when you're leaving the hospital with your baby, because there needs to be different series of when people get this information. And I think when you told me about what you have achieved and that study around reducing stillbirth, in which hospital was it?
There's been many, but the most recent one was Derby.
Exactly. That's information being given to the right people and giving them the support and making such a difference. And that's all we want to do. We just want to make sure every mum knows what could actually help them. That yes, you're going to go through some kind of role confusion or role transition or maternal transition, whatever it is we decide to call it. That's the other thing. What do we call it? Because people don't like identity crisis because it's too much of a stigma around, the same as postnatal depression and postnatal anxiety. Matrescence is a word that everyone's using, but my only concern with that is 1 in 3 mums weren't born in Britain, so are they going to understand that word? So I started calling it maternal transformation. That's my new term at the moment, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so that's Mum Love. Mum Love is a site to help and support you, really trying to bring elements into the country that will actually help mums, so emotional support. And then later, I'd like to find a way to change the narrative around women going back to work, because I've just seen so many amazing stats on that too. And when you look into other people out there who are doing it and really helping women back to work, they're making such a difference. So I think there needs to be an education as well about, yes, our identity changes, but we learn so many more tools and so many more different things through motherhood as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, it affects so many people. And so the peer-to-peer support is so important. That's amazing because you can meet mums you can meet them in the same place as you're at. You don't feel like you're going mad because other people are feeling the same way. But it's not something that we necessarily talk about so much, is it? Like, I don't know, it's like a socially unacceptable thing. Maybe if you've got a really close friend, you can talk to them in a one-to-one, but then that depends if they're in the same sort of life stage as you. Have they just had a baby? Are they going through a similar thing as you are at the moment? Because sometimes not all our friends are at the same stage. So
That's it, isn't it? It's like, unless you find that one mum, it's not, I don't need 20 mums. I just needed that one mum to be like, it's okay, everything's okay. And I think it's that village. I know we always talk about that village, but after COVID, we did lose that village.
yeah,
And I think because we haven't got that, we haven't got the knowledge, and therefore we do need emotional support. We do need a friend to tell us how it is or dust us off, or and I think when you meet these women who are amazing and they have transformed my life, but at the same time they were new as well. They were new mums, so you didn't open up and say, "Oh, I had a fight with my partner last night because I'm not being as cuddly as I should be," but because you don't want to let anyone know that that's what's happening. So it's only until like that friendship develops that you can actually say, "Oh, this is what's happened." And I think that's the other thing is, I want Mum Love to be just raw honesty. Like, I don't like putting myself out on camera, and I don't like doing this, but obviously, like, and I'm like Georgie, I just say it how it is. So that's why I shouldn't be put on camera. But the main thing for me is that if you can actually have these mums and they can say it anonymously or not and really talk about how they feel, there might be a mum out there who's sitting at home going, "Oh, what's wrong with me?" and who can stumble across this letter and feel like they're not the only one. And that's all I want to achieve. Um,
absolutely.
and then change at some point. Like, it's going to take a while. A Mum Love for me, I don't just want it to be for Britain. I want it to be worldwide. I want it to be something where other mums can find it. And I've been looking into so many things that the people are doing worldwide. Like I think it's called Mums for Mums in Australia, where they created a program where they buddy you up with a mum. So you've got this information, you've got this emotional support, and it makes such a difference. So, depending on what country you go into and all of those things, it will be adapted. But it's the same concept of someone's holding your hand through having a baby.
So tell me more about these tools. How do you support people in navigating that transition to reassure them that this is, normal feelings, normal emotions to go through, and how they can then try and find their new identity, if you like?
Right, here's Mum Love. So when I created Mum Love, I wanted to be like a giant hug. Sometimes you go to sites and it feels very either safe or like you're in a nursery, and I definitely didn't want to do that. And I wanted it to be about the mum. So I'm not saying it's not about the children, but it is this site, Mum Love, is about mums. So the whole point about what Mum Love is, obviously you've got the introduction. We've got podcasts we recommend, which we've only got a few up there at the moment, but we are adding to it regularly. And obviously, if anyone does have any podcasts, please reach out and let us know, and we'll share it on the site.
I can recommend the Mama podcast.
We'll you pointing that up next, I promise. And then you've got this community part here. And then you've got real stories. So the stories element here is where you've got, so this is my story. This is one about maternity leave ending and how to go back to work. This one is about not feeling like she was in her body. This one is about depression and not feeling like she was in a, like as it's described, like a Hollywood movie. This one's about her relationship changing, and saying, did she lose her best friend but gain a great father? So I think this is where they're really real, these stories, and really supportive.
And not something that you see very often on social media.
Exactly. And then you've got the emotional support. So this is where we have talked about matrescence, because obviously it's a very relevant subject at the moment. Then you've got your support through Panda. So this is where you've got your toolkit if you wanted to go and see a healthcare professional, and a mood tracker. Now, these are more kind of light-hearted resources, but are really important. So one of the things I did was I wrote a letter to my pre-self, and then I wrote a letter to me now. And the reason why I did it is because I think sometimes before we even get pregnant, we haven't recognised that we've changed since we were 30 to 35 or 20 to 25. How many times do we watch a movie and think we're watching someone and they say their age, and you go, you can't be that age. You can't be the same age as me, because we don't recognise it ourselves. So it's got an element which is like letters to pre-mums, getting unstuck. You've got some you time, how to create some you time, and there'll be a lot more happening. So at some point there'll be recordings. The other thing we've been looking at as well from the website point of view is how can people leave their story, but actually it be recorded instead of them writing it, because I think people do struggle to write it all down.
That is such a good idea. So you mentioned Downing Street, which is a huge achievement, by the way. So congratulations on managing to get a meeting there.
Thanks.
And now you're working with the Department of Health and Social Care on these emotional packs, and they sound fantastic. So tell us more about that. Where do you stand with that? How are you going to get them to support you with getting them into trusts?
So, well, at the moment, they wanted to create it with us. So a draft has been sent over to them to then go over to their team to give us feedback, and then we will have a meeting and start to build this pack together. That's the plan. And then from there, they can recommend. So one of the main reasons why Mum Love was set up was because when I wrote "I'm lost" into Google as a mum, postnatal depression came up on the NHS website. And I was like, shut it down. Don't want to think about it. Just ignore what you're feeling, George. Ignore what you're feeling. So my mission originally was just to get a page up on NHS website. And what was amazing about this first call we had was she's like, if you had to put yourself on the NHS website, where would you put yourself? And I said, there isn't anywhere. There's like literally like the tiniest little section that deals with emotion. That's it. There's nothing. So I think that's the start. Then I think that the NHS get given so much information, but if they would recommend it and, you know, we can make enough noise and make a difference, and also let mums know through community, like I think social prescribing is a really important piece. I think libraries, you know, anything to do with community. I had an amazing meeting with the CEO of NCT as well, who obviously told me to get in touch with you, which is how we got in touch. So I think all of these platforms are going to be really, really important.
Definitely. You've achieved so much already. It's absolutely amazing. So what have you learned from this incredible journey that you're on at the moment?
Keep pushing those doors open, because I cannot tell you, like, I had one, I won't say who, I had one organization and they didn't reply to me. So I just wrote back to them and said, hang on a second, you know, you say you want to help mums, and I'm offering you a free way to help mums and something that's really needed. Like, are we doing this or not? Like, you have to just keep pushing that door open. And I think that's one. Two, data. Oh my goodness me. I've learned so much. Like I had a call with her name is Tista. She's a maternal consultant and she works with the WHO. And I had a brilliant call with her and she actually really socked it to me and she said, don't you dare get involved in the mental health side because you don't have that knowledge. But she's like, but there is definitely a gap in emotion. So that's actually the start of it. So talking to people, the YouGov stats have just been enlightening. Like we've really learned, like we even learned that there's a percentage of women that walk out of here and know that they've developed new tools to take back to work. So I think when we get to that stage of encouraging people, you know, to be open and honest with their employers and say, actually, I've got new tools and I'm coming back, but I want to come back in a slightly different role in a different way, but you're going to get a better me out of it, then I think we could really change the narrative around this. So I definitely data is an absolute key. Um, and yeah, I think my bit is like just learn to shout out a lot more. I'm not, I don't put myself like on an Instagram and say, hi, this is George, or do any of that stuff. I do podcasts, but that's about it. So I definitely need to do that more. But the whole point about Mum Love is it's not about me, it's about mums. So I want more mums to shout out and say how they feel.
I love data. We don't have enough data in the UK on all sorts of different things. And that's one of the things that I fed into the inquiry, how important data is and how actually it's quite simple to capture it. But it needs to be captured in the first place in order for you to be able to analyze it. But you've also then spoken to so many different people. What have you learned out of those conversations? Because I know you've mentioned when we met earlier, you've mentioned so many different people that you've worked with.
Oh, it's amazing. I spoke to the Open University and I really, really learned some amazing pieces about different jobs and how their transition affects. So that was quite an interesting one. And what I mean by that is if someone's had a job where they're out on the ground and then as soon as they get pregnant, they get moved to a desk job, their transition seems to be their identity confusion, role confusion, maternal transformation seems to be less because they've had a much longer period to get used to before the baby arrives. So that's been quite interesting. I I'm really debating this whole matrescence thing at the moment. As I said, I think it's a great word, and I think the campaign that obviously Peanut and Tommy Tippy has done is brilliant. My only worry is how does it translate, because we are a multicultural country, and I worry about how that will work. So I think I've learned a lot from there. As I said, I spoke to Zoe. I thought she was really interesting, and I love what she's doing. Um, I spoke to a woman called Sophie Morder from Matri. She has an employment platform. So she actually works with corporate companies to help women come back to work, but she also does parents because we have to be completely correct, you know, men and women. But she has created a series of videos and resources and even like group calls. So it really prepares women back to work. So that was really interesting because I think she gave me, I did write this stat down, I think it's something like 27% of women don't return back to their previous career after having a baby. But she's really, she's really managed to fix that through her platform. So I think that's been a real eye opener for me. So the more and more of people I talk to, the more I understand what I need to do and what I need to fix. In that sense. And even you, Heidi, when you gave me these stats and you showed me, what you're doing and these passports and how much it's helping, it tells me we're all going down the right path on this knowledge side. So yeah, I think I've met some really interesting people. I've on the way I've met some people that I feel disappointed that I was really excited to meet, who were supposed to be doing amazing things for mums, and I feel that they're more about the way they're presenting themselves than actually what they're actually doing. And I think that has been quite frustrating, because I just feel like every time you email someone, you're getting lost in whatever it is that they're trying to sell you rather than do. One of the things I really am absolute adamant on with Mum Love is there will be no brands on the site. This is not something that I'm going to white label. This is a safe space for mums, and I want it to continue to be. And I really hope at some point that it will really start to flow and become that. It's growing. It is growing slowly as a community.
Well, you've achieved so much so far, and you've got so much passion there. That's guaranteed. That's absolutely guaranteed. You're going to help so many people. It's amazing.
Like for you, is like what you went through though, isn't it? You go down this rabbit hole. You're like, right, I want to get a page on the NHS website. Oh no, well now I'll build a website. Oh, now I'm going to do an emotional pack. Now I'm going to go Downing Street. Now I'm going to do this. I've kind of gone down my own rabbit hole. I wasn't expecting it to be as life-changing as it has. I wasn't definitely not expecting to be standing in front of those black doors. Some of the, I never expected to talk to some of the people I've got to talk to, and I really feel like I'm doing like a degree in understanding mums. It's crazy. Like I feel like I
Yeah.
could write a paper on it now.
Yeah, I feel like I have to learn a different skill pretty much every single day, and I have to come out of my comfort zone. But it's worth it when you're passionate about something and you really want to make a difference. It spurs you on. It gives you that adrenaline boost to go and do it. It's like feel the fear and do it anyway. So you're doing a great job. You've mentioned the word matrescence a few times, and it's on your website. But for people that don't understand that word, because it is a bit of a buzzword at the moment, it is coming up quite a bit. And like you say, you're trying to think of different wording. What exactly does it mean? And can it have sort of different perspectives on things? Because I imagine it sort of means different things to different people.
Yeah, so when I had the call with Zoe, everything I was describing, she was like, "This is matrescence." So I think the easiest way, and I think it's quite a clever way, is it's the same concept of adolescence. It's that concept of when you go through puberty and become a teenager, you change as a person, and it's the same concept of matrescence. So it's maternal adolescence, and so the whole idea is you go through a change. Obviously in every single way. So hormonal, you definitely go through a change, but also as a person, because of the fact that you become a mum, you transform. I think it's like I think of becoming a mum like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. I really do. And if I could find a way to show it as a drawing, I really think that's really important, because I entered with a baby in my tummy, and I carried on working, and I bounced around on my ball, and I did all of that stuff. But as soon as this baby arrived, I kind of was like, that's when I was in the cocoon. That was actually when I was a bit lost and I was a bit in the dark. But as she grew up and I started to learn, I learned to be fun again, like dance around the kitchen and be silly with her, like no one was watching. I can't believe my brain goes really fast, as you probably can see from this podcast, but I really analyze everything. I know where she's going, what she's doing, that chair might fall over, like the way our brains work. And that's when I feel like my butterfly wings arrived and I became this other person and I transformed into someone. And I think that's honestly the best way you could describe motherhood. when Emily got laid on my tummy in the C-section, I wasn't expecting to be in a C-section. I found it quite overwhelming. So I didn't have that moment. I didn't have that. And I always call it a Hollywood moment because let's be honest, how many movies have we watched where they're crying? They're like, this is amazing. I didn't have that. And I managed to get one picture where I looked really happy, but I'm telling you, it went on for a long time. And so I didn't have that. And I don't think I really had that moment until they took the tubes out. And then my mum was in the room and she lay her on me because she needed to go to the bathroom. And that is my time. I had that moment. That was probably about 2 weeks in that she lay on my chest and I was like, information for emotional, but that was the moment I was like, oh my God, I've got this baby. Um, and now, even now, like she's 3.5 now, I adore her and she makes me so happy and she brings out the best in me. And that's where I feel like I'm finding my wings. Like I become mama bear in work. Like I don't let anyone waste my time. Like I know exactly what I've got to do. When people go, how do you get everything done? I'm like, because I'm a mum. Like that's how I get everything done, because I know I've got this much time, this is what I've got to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. So I'm realistic as well now. So I don't take on so much that I can't do it, but I'm also don't do time wasters. I'm to the point. And I think that's really important. But yeah, I would say it's this turning into a butterfly. So mattress. I always say matrescence. I keep going matrescence. That's the worst bit about it because I'm just like, yeah, I do that. So I'm like, oh, I pronounced it. I think when I first spoke to Zoe, I said it the wrong way, and she looked at me like horrified. But yeah, so I think it's a clever word. I just, as I said, I still am not 100% sold. Is it the right word? I think it's down to marketing, and what we are going to have to do is market a word into the mum space so they understand. And is it that word? Is it not that word? But yeah, if I could find a way, I think of it as from a caterpillar to a butterfly. I really, really do.
Well, if anyone listening right now has got a brainwave and has got some bright ideas, please do let us know. I love that visual of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, because that's hit the nail on the head. And it is a magnificent journey, and we're never the same person again. Let's face, we can't get back into our cocoons.
Yeah, you can't unless you're doing all sleep.
No, obviously, but we're constantly learning. And as the children, get older, they go through different phases and there's constantly things to learn. Um, and yeah, and then you end up turning into your own parents.
I know. It's like, true. Yeah. But it's strictness. It's like, no, don't do. I don't want to have one of those children. I'm gonna have this child, and then you're like, oh no, I sound like my mum. Yeah, I suppose.
Exactly. So you're very much focused on maternal well-being, which is absolutely fantastic. What inspired you to do that? What was your own experience of the emotional side of things?
As I said, I got very lost. I just kept feeling like something was wrong with me. Like I was like, what? Like I remember writing, what is wrong with me? I had to go back to work. So I went back to work immediately, which was really quite difficult. And I remember having Amelie in a trip trap, like a high chair thing with a bed in it. And I'd kind of moved her outside so she cooed, outside the door of the kitchen. So she cooed, you couldn't hear her. But then I was sitting on this call and I just am so conscious of the fact that my baby is outside of the room that I just don't want to be on the call. I want to go and be with her. So that was quite a hard one. I think honesty, like I really wasn't honest to anyone. I didn't tell anyone how I was feeling. Like I remember saying to the NCT cast, I have been so lost. Like I have not. And then literally one of them was like, I've been feeling like this, I've been feeling that. We weren't honest with each other. I think that was definitely an experience. And I think there are a lot of people out there who obviously struggle to have children. You feel guilty about saying you're struggling as a mum. You feel very conscious of that. I'm struggling as a mum, or I feel lost, or I feel lonely. And they're like, what are you talking about? And what you see on Instagram isn't all true. I just saw, is it Sophie Habu? I think it is, who's married to Jamie Lang. And she just said that she felt quite lonely. And she's been quite vocal on that. And obviously, like, that's been a big story because of who she is. But it's true. There are such lonely moments. Our kids don't talk to us. They look cute and everything like that, but they don't talk. We're tired, but actually when they're asleep, we're like, oh, finally I can have some time to myself. But actually you end up cleaning something up or doom scrolling on your phone or whatever it is. So I think that's an experience. And then the sleep thing for me, my God, like that was horrendous. Like I was just so paranoid about her that I don't really think I slept for the first 9 months, if I be really honest. Like anything she did. I even went and bought like a device for her belly button, in case something happened. And I remember the alarm going off. And then after that, I just kept hearing the alarm. So I was just making it worse for myself. So I think yeah, I think it was hard. When, as I said, after 9 months, when I finally worked out what was going on, I've had a totally different experience.
And do you think your perspective of motherhood before you had your daughter has now changed after you've had her?
I think from this beautiful person coming into your life and transforming your life was definitely something I thought would happen, but I had no idea the transformation would be as big. So I adore her. She makes me so happy. I would have another one in a heartbeat because I just think it's amazing. Um, but I think from a transformational point of view, I had no idea. Georgie, who went into that C-section room, to the person who came out, I don't recognise her at all anymore. I'm just such a different person, for sure.
And maybe there needs to be more knowledge and awareness about this beforehand as well, especially during pregnancy or considering a pregnancy, that there will be this transition stage. I think that could help a lot of people as well, because to get the conversation started and people talking about it.
I think so. One of the things we're seeing on our social media is when we do talk about I feel lost and it's okay, we do get a lot of comments from mums being like, I feel so lost. I don't know what's wrong with me. I thank you for your post. Like, it's just the knowledge. And I was talking to Pandas and she said it is the knowledge, but also some of them want to know what to do about it. So that's why there's two elements of it. There's the stories, which is the knowledge, and then there's the resources, which is what to do about it. And I think that's the most important piece is how do we let people know that this is a thing? How do we let people know? And there's so much negativity around, we've got low birth rates now because people don't want to have children. I think there's so much negative narrative around motherhood, and it's because of the non-understanding. And actually, that's what I said when I went to Downing Street. I said, you read the BBC and it's like sexless parents, they don't have sex anymore apparently because they have a baby, or more divorces happening, or women are not going back to work. I said there's so much negative in the news around motherhood, and I said, and half of your problems would be fixed if the knowledge was there, if someone was able to recognize and a partner was able to understand that your relationship is going to change. But if you support that person through that transition, your relationship will get back on track much quicker, rather than expecting that person to walk back through the door from that hospital the exact same person who left the house. That's the first. The second I think is really important is work. It is very hard to go back to work. I've watched so many of my friend mums go back to work, stick their kid into nursery, and then have a virus 2 weeks later, and then another virus, and another virus, and another virus. There needs to be a reality check about what it's like for mums to go back to work. And instead of being like, oh, you're back and, did you have a nice break? It wasn't a break. It was not a break. Let's stop that immediately. I went to university and I actually had less sleep than when I went to university when I had my baby. That's how I feel. Like, I learned so many more skills, but my goodness me, like, I was exhausted. I was hormonal. I had been through quite a trauma. It was a totally different experience. And I just think we have got to start the honest narrative in some way or another, be it, mum groups, please. Like, I begged a mum group the other week. I said, please just put 1 minute in your group each week to just talk about transition or identity or just something. Don't just talk about weaning and nappies, because it becomes so much about the baby. It starts becoming about the mum, and it's the mum that's going through such a transition. So I think it's
Absolutely.
really important.
No, absolutely. So, if you had one piece of advice for someone that was really struggling right now, what would that be?
So it depends. Struggling in the sense of feeling lost and not recognizing that your transition's changed. The advice would be it's perfectly normal. Of course, you're allowed to feel like that. You know, if we go back to adolescence, we all felt lost as teenagers, especially as girls. Our bodies were changing. We started our periods. What is the same thing? What we went through, our hormones changed. We had to breastfeed. We didn't recognize ourselves. We weren't eating or sleeping or drinking like we normally do. So I think that's one. For someone who's really struggling, you've got to ask for help, because one of the things I have been looking into is about postnatal depression. Now, I can't fix postnatal depression, and because I am not a doctor, but what I do know and the conversations I've had, there is postnatal depression, which is hormone related, and there's postnatal depression, which is mental health related. So if you have not recognized that you have transformed as a person and you're struggling because of these elements, then of course you're going to go further and further into the black hole that you're feeling. But if you recognize it and you still feel the way you're feeling, 100% go to the doctor and ask for help. And that's why we have to safeguard the site too and make sure that we cover those areas. But Mum Love is not, for people with postnatal depression and postnatal anxiety, please go to platforms like Pandas, because they do such an amazing job. But if you are just feeling lost in, your pre-mum self, then Mum Love's there to help you.
Well, it's been fantastic talking to you, Georgie, and Mom Love is just doing wonderful work. So thank you so much for being on here today. And how can people get in touch with you? Because I know you've got a website and I know you're on social media.
Yeah. So for the website, you can go to www.mum-love.com. And on there, you've also got our social media pages you can go to. Please, please leave your story. If you recognize anything we've talked about today, please leave your story, because the more stories we have on there, the more mums we're able to help. And if you have a mum, friend, or anyone who you think might need a little bit of help, put them our way. So
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I can't wait to do even more things with you.
Well, thank you for what you do, because it's amazing. I found your folder. I don't know if I told you that. So you're a baby folder. I was looking for something in my old mum file, and I found it, and I was like, I've got the folder too. So thank you. In my life before Mum Love happened. So there you go.
I love it. I love you. Appreciate it. Well, thank you so much, Georgie. We will speak to you again soon.
Perfect. Thanks so much. See you later.
Fletcher Solicitors are proud to support the Mama Academy by sponsoring this podcast series. At Fletcher Solicitors, we champion better maternity care. For every birth, for every baby, for every family.
If you enjoyed listening to this episode, share it with a friend or colleague. Make sure you follow us so you don't miss out on our next episode. If you'd like to support our work by fundraising or volunteering, please email contact@mamaacademy.org.uk. For more information on pregnancy and maternity services, please visit our website at www.mamaacademy.org.uk. We're also on all of your favourite social media channels. See you next time!